In the stillness of a pitch-black forest where shadows twist and the wind whispers secrets, a faint hiss cuts through the night. And then, under the ghostly shimmer of a crescent moon, a pair of glowing yellow eyes locks onto something unimaginable. A boy, crumpled on the cold ground, blood pooling beneath him on the grass. His small chest barely rises, and the air smells of danger. But what happens next isn't just incredible, it's a defiance of nature itself, a story that will leave you questioning everything you know about the wild. This isn't merely the tale of a curious little bobcat, it's an odyssey of bravery, instinct, and an unlikely bond forged in the darkest of hours. Are you ready to step into the unknown? Let's dive into this haunting mystery together. Meet Eli Grayson, a wiry 10-year-old with tousled brown hair and wide, thoughtful eyes that always seem to be searching for something beyond the horizon. He lives in Willow Creek, a sleepy little town hugged by endless woods, with his mother Sarah and his stepfather Victor. Eli's a dreamer, the kind of kid who spends hours hunched over a sketchbook, penciling fantastical scenes of dragons, wolves, and far-off lands where heroes triumph over villains. His room is a sanctuary of imagination, walls plastered with drawings, shelves stuffed with adventure novels, and a small wooden desk cluttered with crayons and crumpled paper. It's his escape from a reality that feels more like a cage. Sarah, his mom, is a nurse with a gentle smile and tired hands, always rushing between hospital shifts to keep food on the table. She's the light in Eli's world, the one who tucks him in with stories of her own childhood and promises him that life will get better. But then there's Victor, broad-shouldered, with a voice like gravel and a temper that flares without warning. He came into their lives 2 years ago, marrying Sarah after a whirlwind romance that Eli never understood. To Victor, Eli is an annoyance, a quiet shadow who gets in the way of the life he wants with Sarah. "Why can't you be normal?" Victor often snaps, his words cutting deeper than Eli lets on. When Sarah's at work, Eli retreats to his room, sketching furiously to drown out the sound of Victor's heavy boots pacing the house. It's a sweltering Saturday in July when the cracks in their fragile family start to widen. Sarah suggests a rare outing to Willow Creek Park, a chance she hopes to mend the rift between Eli and Victor. Eli packs his sketchbook, dreaming of capturing the ducks gliding across the pond or the gnarled oak trees swaying in the breeze. For a moment, as they pile into Victor's beat-up truck, there's a flicker of hope. Sarah hums a tune, and Eli even dares to imagine Victor might soften, might see him as more than a burden. But hope is fragile. At the park, Eli sits on a bench, sketching a squirrel darting up a tree, when Victor hands him a soda. The can slips from Eli's sweaty fingers, splashing across Victor's pristine new sneakers. The air shifts instantly. Victor's face darkens, his jaw clenching as he towers over Eli. "You clumsy little idiot," he bellows, loud enough that picnickers turn to stare. Sarah rushes over, her voice soothing as she apologizes to Victor and wipes at his shoes with a napkin. "It was an accident," she pleads, but Victor shoves her hand away, his eyes boring into Eli with a fury that makes the boy shrink. The ride home is suffocating, Sarah's apologies fading into silence, Victor's knuckles white on the wheel, and Eli staring out the window, wishing he could disappear. That night, Sarah gets an emergency call from the hospital. A car accident victim needs surgery. She kisses Eli's forehead, whispering, "I'll be back soon, okay? Stay out of trouble." As her car pulls away, Victor's shadow looms in the doorway of Eli's room. Eli clutches his sketchbook, pretending to draw, but his pencil trembles. Victor steps inside, his boots thudding against the hardwood floor. "Get up," he growls, tossing Eli's small hiking boots onto the bed. "Put these on. We're going out." Eli's stomach twists. Victor's never taken him anywhere alone, and the glint in his stepfather's eyes sends a shiver down his spine. "Where are we going?" Eli asks, voice barely a whisper. Victor smirks, dangling his car keys. "You'll see." The truck rumbles out of Willow Creek. the town's warm lights fading into the rearview mirror as they wind through narrow country roads. Victor cranks up the radio, whistling along to an old rock song, but the cheerfulness feels forced, unnatural. Eli huddles against the passenger door, the cool glass pressing against his cheek as he picks nervously at a loose thread on his jeans. The forest looms outside, tall pines and tangled undergrowth stretching endlessly into the dark. Where are we going? Eli tries again, louder this time. Victor's grin widens, but he doesn't answer. Relax, kid. It's an adventure. You like those, don't you? The hours drag on, the road growing rougher, the radio static crackling as the signal weakens. Eli's eyelids grow heavy, but fear keeps him alert. He glances at Victor, whose whistling has stopped, replaced by a tense silence. The truck slows, veering onto a dirt path barely wide enough for its tires. Branches scrape the windows, and the moonlight barely filters through the canopy above. Suddenly, Victor slams on the brakes, jolting Eli forward. Before he can process what's happening, Victor reaches over, unbuckles Eli's seatbelt, and yanks the door open. Out! He snarls, and with a brutal shove, he hurls Eli from the truck. Eli hits the ground hard, rolling down a small embankment. His head smacks a jagged rock, and his knees scrape across gravel and roots. Pain explodes through his body as he lands in a heap, the taste of blood filling his mouth. He looks up, dazed, just in time to see Victor's truck peel away, taillights vanishing into the night. Don't come back! Victor's voice echoes, then fades. Eli lies there, gasping, the cold earth seeping into his clothes. He tries to stand, but his ankle buckles, sending a sharp stab of agony up his leg. Blood drips from a cut on his forehead, blurring his vision. With trembling hands, he wipes his face, staring at the crimson smear on his fingers. Panic sets in. He's alone, miles from home, with no idea where he is. He crawls, dragging himself through the grass, every movement a battle against the pain. Tears stream down his cheeks as he thinks of his mom, her warm hugs, her voice promising safety. He pictures his sketchbook, abandoned on his bed, and wonders if he'll ever hold a pencil again. Exhaustion overtakes him, and as the world spins, he collapses, his small body curling into the grass. His eyes flutter shut, and darkness swallows him whole. Farther in the forest, under the same moonlit sky, a young bobcat prowls through the underbrush. Barely a year old, it's a scrappy little thing, tufted ears twitching, spotted fur blending with the shadows. It's only recently left its mother's side in the woods or its playground. It leaps onto fallen logs, chases flickering fireflies, and sniffs at every rustle in the leaves. Tonight, though, something new drifts on the breeze, a sharp metallic scent that pricks its curiosity. Blood. The bobcat hesitates, instincts warring with its inquisitive nature. It's seen humans before, hikers with loud voices and bright packs, but never up close. The smell pulls it forward, paws padding silently over moss and twigs. It emerges from a thicket and freezes. There, sprawled in the grass, is Eli, pale, motionless, his jacket torn and stained. The bobcat's head tilts, eyes narrowing as it studies him. It circles slowly, nostrils flaring at the scent of blood and sweat. This isn't prey. It's something else, something vulnerable. Tentatively, it steps closer, nudging Eli's limp hand with its snout. The boy doesn't move. The bobcat's ears flick back, and it glances around as if expecting someone to claim the strange find. But the forest is empty, silent save for the whisper of wind. The boy's shallow breathing catches its attention, a faint rise and fall of his chest. The bobcat doesn't understand why, but a strange urgency stirs within it. This human is in trouble, and somehow it knows. With a soft huff, it clamps its teeth gently around the sleeve of Eli's jacket and tugs. The boy's body shifts slightly, and the bobcat adjusts its grip, pulling harder. It's not strong, barely bigger than a house cat, but it's determined. Step by step, it drags Eli through the grass, pausing to catch its breath, its small frame trembling with effort. Thorns snag at its fur and its paws sink into the damp earth, but it doesn't stop. It has a destination in mind. The bobcat knows of a place, a weathered cabin on the forest's edge, home to Martha Holloway, an elderly woman who once nursed injured animals back to health. It's seen her from afar, scattering seeds for birds or tending to a limping fox. Her scent is familiar, safe. The bobcats never approached her before, wary of humans' unpredictable ways, but tonight is different. The boy needs help, and she's the only one it trusts to give it. The journey is grueling. Eli's weight, though slight, taxes the bobcat's strength. It weaves through brambles, skirts around muddy patches, and hauls him over a fallen branch. The moon climbs higher, casting silver light across their path, illuminating the determination in the bobcat's eyes. At one point, Eli stirs faintly, a weak groan escaping his lips, and the bobcat freezes, ears swiveling. But he falls still again, and it resumes its task, driven by an instinct it can't name. After what feels like miles, the cabin comes into view, smoke curling from the chimney, a soft glow spilling from the windows. The bobcat's legs ache, its breath coming in short puffs, but it pushes on. It drags Eli to the edge of the porch, his jacket now tangled with leaves and dirt, and releases him. Raising its head, it lets out a piercing cry, a sharp, wild sound that echoes through the trees. Inside, Martha startles awake in her armchair, a quilt slipping from her lap. She's a wiry woman in her 70s, with silver hair pulled into a loose bun and hands roughened by years of hard work. The cry jolts her upright, unmistakable, a bobcat, closer than she's ever heard one before. She shuffles to the window, peering into the night, and gasps. There on her doorstep sits a young bobcat, its fur matted and eyes wide, guarding a crumpled figure. She grabs her shawl and a flashlight, hesitating only a moment before flinging the door open. The bobcat doesn't flee. It stares at her, then nudges the boy with its nose, as if urging her to act. Martha kneels beside Eli, her breath catching at the sight of his bloodied face and twisted ankle. "Oh, sweet heavens," she murmurs, brushing his hair back. She glances at the bobcat, its gaze steady, and realizes it's no threat. It's a savior. With surprising strength for her age, she scoops Eli into her arms and carries him inside, laying him on a worn plaid couch by the fireplace. The bobcat lingers at the threshold, watching as Martha hurries to gather supplies: a bowl of warm water, cloths, a first aid kit. She cleans the gash on Eli's forehead, wincing at the bruises blooming across his arms, and wraps his ankle with a bandage. Covering him with a quilt, she steps outside to offer the bobcat a dish of water. "You're a miracle, aren't you?" she says softly. It laps at the water, exhausted but alert. Hours pass and the fire crackling low when Eli stirs. His eyes flutter open and panic seizes him as he registers the unfamiliar room, the wooden walls, the smell of pine and old wool. He bolts upright, wincing as pain shoots through his ankle, and freezes when he sees Martha rocking gently in her chair. "You're safe, child," she says, her voice calm but firm. "You're in my home. A little bobcat brought you here." Eli's brow furrows, confusion mixing with fear. "A bobcat?" he croaks. Martha nods, pointing to the window where the animal still sits, a shadowy silhouette against the glass. Tears well in Eli's eyes as the memories flood back. Victor's anger, the shove, the endless fall. He spills it all to Martha, his voice breaking as he recounts the betrayal, the terror of being abandoned. She listens, her weathered face tightening with every word, and when he finishes, she takes his hand. "That man won't touch you again," she vows. "We're calling the police." Martha dials the authorities, her voice steady as she explains the situation. Within an hour, sirens pierce the night, and Sarah bursts through the door, her nurse's scrubs wrinkled from a frantic drive. "Eli!" she cries, dropping to her knees beside the couch. She pulls him into a crushing hug, sobbing into his hair. "I'm so sorry, baby. I didn't know." Eli clings to her, the warmth of her embrace chasing away the cold that's gripped him for hours. Sarah turns to Martha, gratitude spilling from her. "How can I ever thank you?" Martha shakes her head, gesturing to the bobcat now slipping back toward the trees. "Thank that one. It dragged him here, saved his life." Sarah stares, incredulous, as Eli whispers, "It really did." The police take Eli's statement, promising Victor's arrest, and as they prepare to leave, Eli catches a final glimpse of the bobcat vanishing into the forest, its mission complete. Eli, Martha, and the little bobcat part ways that night. Their paths never crossing again, but their story becomes a legend, a testament to courage, compassion, and the mysterious ties that bind us to the wild. Eli grows up with a pencil in hand, sketching bobcats into every tale he tells, a quiet tribute to the hero who pulled him from the brink. Sarah rebuilds their life, free of Victor's shadow, and Martha keeps a bowl of water on her porch, just in case. As for the bobcat, it roams the woods, a silent guardian of secrets. What do you think? Can animals sense when we need them most? Share your own incredible stories in the comments below. If this tale moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more journeys into the extraordinary. We'll see you next time. The Alaskan wilderness in winter was a realm of unrelenting beauty and terror, a vast canvas painted white with snow and streaked with the shadows of towering pines. The wind sang a mournful tune, its icy fingers clawing at anything daring to stand against it. Here, where the sun barely kissed the horizon, Alice had carved out her sanctuary. Her cabin, a weathered fortress of logs and dreams, sat on the edge of a sprawling nature reserve, a place where the heartbeat of the wild pulsed beneath the frost. With hair as red as a wildfire and eyes green as the aurora, Alice was no ordinary soul. She was a wildlife photographer, her Nikon a trusted companion, each click of the shutter a love letter to the untamed. Her days were solitary but full, spent tracking elusive creatures through snowdrifts or hunched over her desk, editing images that captured the raw essence of nature. She'd come to Alaska 5 years ago, fleeing a life of noise and concrete, seeking solace in the silence of the wild. The locals called her Fire Hair, a nickname born of her striking appearance and unyielding spirit. Yet beneath her boldness lay a quiet ache, a longing for connection she rarely admitted, even to herself. That morning began like any other. The sky was a shroud of gray, the air so cold it burned her lungs as she stepped outside with a mug of coffee steaming in her gloved hands. She was halfway through her first sip when a sound sliced through the stillness, a cry, high and keening, like a thread of sorrow woven into the wind. Alice froze, her breath a plume of white. The cry came again, weaker now, tugging at her like a fisherman's line. She set the mug down, grabbed her camera and a flashlight, and plunged into the frostbitten dawn. The snow crunched beneath her boots as she followed the sound, her heart thudding a rhythm of curiosity and dread. It led her through a maze of pines, their branches heavy with ice, until she reached a small cave half hidden by a gnarled root system. She knelt, shining her light inside, and her breath caught. 7 lynx kittens, their fur a chaotic tangle of gray and white, huddled together, their tiny bodies trembling. Their eyes, barely open, glinted like stars in the dimness, but it was the sight beyond them that stopped her cold. Their mother, a majestic lynx with a coat like moonlit silver, lay slumped against the cave wall. Blood pooled beneath her, a stark red against the snow, flowing from a jagged wound on her shoulder, a brutal mark of some predator's jaws. Alice's mind raced. She'd seen death in the wild before, elk felled by wolves, birds frozen mid-flight, but this was different. The mother's chest rose faintly, a fragile thread of life still clinging to her. The kitten's cries grew louder, a desperate plea that pierced Alice's resolve. She whispered, "Hold on, I've got you," her voice trembling as she unwound her thick wool scarf. Kneeling in the snow, she pressed it to the wound, her hand stained crimson as she fought to staunch the bleeding. The mother's golden eyes flickered, meeting hers with a look that seemed to teeter between surrender and trust. Alice knew bringing a lynx family into her home was a gamble few would take. The wild wasn't meant to bend to human will, and yet she couldn't turn away. She dug into her pack, pulling out a spare blanket to line her old backpack, a relic from her hiking days. One by one, she scooped up the kittens, their tiny claws pricking her gloves as they squirmed. "Easy now, little ones," she cooed, tucking them into the pack until it bulged with life. The mother was another challenge. She was heavy, her body slack with exhaustion, but Alice hoisted her into her arms, staggering under the weight as she began the trek back. The journey was a battle against the elements. Snow swirled around her, the wind a howling beast that threatened to knock her down. Her legs burned, her arms ached, but she pressed on, the cabin's faint outline her beacon. By the time she stumbled through the door, her coat was crusted with ice, and her breath came in ragged gasps. She kicked the door shut, the warmth of the fire washing over her like a tide. Inside, chaos reigned. The kittens spilled from the backpack, tumbling onto the rug with indignant mews. Alice fashioned a makeshift den from Max's old kennel, its wooden frame still etched with his claw marks, a bittersweet reminder of her lost friend. She lined it with blankets, coaxing the kittens inside where they curled into a purring heap. The mother she laid before the hearth, her silver fur glowing in the firelight. Blood had soaked through the scarf, and Alice's stomach twisted as she assessed the damage. The wound was deep, the flesh torn ragged, but she'd seen worse survive with care. Years in the wild had taught her more than photography. She fetched her emergency kit, a battered tin stocked with sutures, antiseptics, and a vet's stash of antibiotics from a ranger friend. Her hands steadied as she worked, threading the needle with practiced precision. Each stitch was a lifeline, pulling the links back from the abyss. She cleaned the wound, injected the medicine, and wrapped it in gauze, her fingers lingering on the soft fur. "You're a fighter," she murmured, settling a blanket over the still form. Exhaustion tugged at her, but sleep was a luxury she couldn't afford, not yet. The night stretched long and restless. The kittens cried for milk, their voices a relentless chorus. Alice rummaged through her supplies, finding a canister of powdered formula she'd kept for emergencies. She mixed it with trembling hands, filling a syringe to feed them drop by drop. Their tiny tongues lapped eagerly, and she smiled despite the ache in her bones. Between feedings, she watched the mother, Luna, she decided to call her, for the way her fur shimmered like moonlight. Luna's breasts were shallow, her body a fragile shell, and Alice whispered prayers to a wilderness she wasn't sure listened. Days bled into one another, a blur of hope and fear. Luna lay still, her golden eyes closed, her chest rising and falling like the tide on a distant shore. Alice tended her tirelessly, changing bandages, administering medicine, coaxing water into her mouth with a dropper. The kittens grew bolder, their paws pattering across the cabin floor, their playful tussles a stark contrast to their mother's stillness. Alice's world shrank to these 8 lives, her camera forgotten on the shelf as she fought to keep them whole. On the 5th day, a storm roared in, shaking the cabin with its fury. Snow piled against the windows, sealing them in a cocoon of white. Alice sat by Luna, her knees drawn up, watching the fire cast shadows across the lynx's face. She spoke to her softly, tales of her own life spilling out, her childhood in a city that never slept, her escape to the wild, the loneliness that sometimes gnawed at her. "You've got to pull through, Luna," she said, voice cracking. "Your babies need you. I need you to make it." The storm raged for 2 days, and when it finally broke, silence returned like a gift. Alice was feeding the kittens when she heard it. A low rasping sound. She turned, heart leaping, to see Luna's eyes flutter open. They glowed like embers, fierce and alive. The lynx shifted, dragging herself upright, her nose seeking her young. Alice held her breath as Luna nosed the kennel, a rumbling purr rising from her throat as the kittens swarmed her. Tears stung Alice's eyes, a laugh bubbling up. "You stubborn beauty," she whispered, wiping her face with a sleeve. Luna's recovery was a slow dance of strength reclaimed. She groomed her kittens, her tongue smoothing their wild fur, her presence calming their restless energy. Alice watched in awe, noting how Luna tolerated her nearness. No growls, no bared teeth, just a quiet acceptance. She brought scraps of meat from her freezer, thawing them by the fire, and Luna ate with growing vigor, her golden gaze meeting Alice's as if in thanks. The cabin became a strange haven, a blend of human and wild. Alice resumed her photography, snapping candid shots of the kittens wrestling or Luna stretching in a patch of sunlight. She sent a few to her ranger friend Ellie, who replied with a mix of disbelief and admiration. "You're insane, Firehair, but damn if you don't have a heart of gold." Alice grinned, knowing Ellie was right on both counts, yet the wild call. By the third week, Luna paced the cabin, her ears flicking toward the door. Alice understood. The forest was her kingdom, not this wooden box. She prepared a snowmobile, rigging a crate for the family. The farewell was bittersweet. She drove them back to the cave, the wind biting her cheeks as Luna's eyes locked on the horizon. Setting them down, Alice left a pile of meat, her camera capturing their return, Luna leading, the kittens scampering behind. "Stay safe," she called, her voice swallowed by the vastness. Alice thought that was the end. She returned to her routine, tracking moose and foxes, her days regaining their quiet rhythm. But a month later, as she sipped tea on her porch, a rustle broke her reverie. Luna emerged from the trees, her kittens, now larger, sleeker, trailing her. They swarmed the porch, tumbling over logs and batting at icicles, their antics pulling a laugh from Alice's chest. Luna reclined, regal and serene, watching her brood with a mother's pride. Alice grabbed her camera, heart pounding as she framed the scene. One kitten perched on her chair, another dangling from a rope swing she'd hung for Max. She kept her distance, honoring their wildness, but the sight felt like a gift, a thank you etched in paw prints. They stayed until dusk, then vanished into the twilight, leaving Alice breathless with wonder. The visits continued, sporadic but cherished. Sometimes Luna came alone, her silhouette a silver ghost against the snow. Other times a grown kitten tagged along, their eyes echoing their mother's. Each encounter was a quiet ritual, a bond unspoken yet profound. Alice began leaving small offerings, bits of meat, a carved wooden toy near the porch, a gesture of goodwill. A year passed, and the reserve buzzed with rumors. Hunters had moved in, drawn by tales of abundant game. Alice grew wary, her treks marked by unease. One evening, as she developed photos, a gunshot echoed through the trees. She bolted outside, flashlight in hand, fear clawing her gut. The forest was silent, but a trail of blood led her to a clearing. There, a young lynx lay dead, one of Luna's, she realized, recognizing the familiar markings. Grief and rage surged within her, a storm she couldn't quell. She buried the lynx near her cabin, a cairn of stones marking its rest. Days later, Luna appeared alone, her eyes dulled with loss. She lingered longer than usual, a mournful shadow on the porch. Alice sat beside her, silent, their shared sorrow a bridge across species. "I'm sorry," she whispered, knowing it changed nothing. The hunters moved on, but the scar remained. Luna's visits grew rarer, her family scattered by time and fate. Yet Alice held on to the memory, their rescue, their return, their fleeting trust. She framed a photo of that first porch visit, hanging it above her desk, a reminder of the wild's fragile grace. Years later, Alice's story became legend in the reserve. Her photos, Luna's golden stare, the kitten's playful chaos, graced galleries and magazines, a testament to a bond forged in crisis. She never sought fame, but it found her, drawing others to protect the wild she loved. And though Luna faded into the forest's embrace, Alice sometimes glimpsed a lynx near her cabin, a descendant perhaps, carrying echoes of that winter. The wilderness had taken much, her solitude, her tears, but it had given more, a family, if only for a season. Alice, Firehair of the Frost, knew her kindness had rippled beyond her sight, a flame burning bright in the endless ice. Do you know any stories of special animals? Share below. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.